So let me give a bit of advice on passion and one bit of advice on perseverance, since I think that these are the two sides of grit. So on passion, I will say this. I observed of my own teenage daughters that during the pandemic, where lots of things were not great, but one thing that was great was that they actually were freed from a lot of their usual routines and obligations. And what I got to see was their intrinsic interests start to evolve in the direction that they would when unconstrained by like 5 hours of homework and I saw both of them like move in directions that I didn't anticipate, right? So like my 18-year-old is like painting all the time. I mean, I was like, oh, would not have like, okay, like there's something in her that wants to create and draw and paint. So I would say on passion, particularly during the pandemic, at whatever age your kid is, it does really start with interests that develop over years, and to be that observant parent and to allow them to be free enough to kind of like pursue things that you wouldn't predict or you don't like or you don't value, but they're really engaging their attention in a spontaneous way. So it is maybe a good time for interest development that's independent and unconstrained from the usual obligations. So on passion, like let them go a little bit, right? And maybe relax a little bit, and maybe they don't have to do Kumon every like afternoon. Like maybe you can let them do what they want a little more than usually do. On perseverance, I mean, here's something I've tried to say to my own undergraduate students and my own children. I think understanding that we are in a historic era, like the history books will have a long section on the pandemic of 2020 and the social justice issues of the United States in particular as well. And I think sometimes understanding that we're living through history, and I say to my own daughters as well as my undergraduate students, like, in 2050 or 2060, like, you might be a grandparent, telling the story of 2020 and what you lived through. And you might even pull out your own journal and read aloud some certain excerpts. And I want you to think back to this historic, trying crisis in history, and I want you to be proud of how you did. And you're not going to tell your grandchildren that you were perfect. You're not going to tell your grandchildren that every day was a good day and that you made no mistakes. But at the end of the day, and in retrospect, that you did your best. That you looked for things that you could control, that you looked for ways to be helpful and to have purpose, and that in that time, in ways that you can only appreciate now that you're looking back, that maybe part of your character was actually formed in a very positive way in this time that is historic and difficult, but potentially a time for growth for everyone.